Everyone, my name is Rachel Dixon. I'm a massage therapist and a postural alignment therapist on Nantucket Island. I have been a massage therapist for over 20 years. I mostly work with people with chronic pain, chronic stress, and/or chronic disease. They tend to overlap. When I first became a massage therapist, people's issues were mostly taken care of with massage. But over the years, I found, mostly because people were sitting a lot more and a little bit less active, they really needed the corrective exercises to build up their strength. So people used to come in and they were sort of tight and stiff. And then their issues became that they were kind of weak and stiff. And so really, in an attempt to get to the root cause of what was going on with my clients, it really forced me to look at a bigger picture of what the root cause was and to come up with a solution. People still really liked the massage for how it felt. It was a very effective way for me to be able to feel into their body and get a sense of where they were different, front to back, left to right. And it gave me a lot of clues as to where their movement deficits were. And it did help with the tissue. You know, if their tissue was tight, it was very helpful to reduce tension in the tissue. But it didn't really get to the root cause, which were people weren't moving correctly. And so, or they weren't moving equally left to right. They weren't meeting their movement needs. And so I really had to expand the different certifications that I had that were allowing for meeting my clients' needs on a full-time basis, other than when they were just on my massage table. So just to begin with today, today's info is for informational purposes only. If this isn't right for you, if any of the exercises are not correct for you, please consult with the doctor, and nothing should be painful, particularly the stuff we're going over for today. So if anything was painful, please do stop. The other thing is today's class, I'm going to go over a morning routine to get you moving right. And then we can go into questions and answers. Because this is recorded, to protect your own identity, please, I'm not going to say your name. I'm just going to answer questions that are general. And if you want to get more specific, or if I'm not able to get specific enough for you, you can always contact me either by email or phone, and we could set up a sort of a consultation to get a little bit more specific. But I'm able to answer a lot of questions online because most things fit general. Most of us sit too much. Most of us move in particular patterns. Many of us have very, very similar things that kind of fix about 80% of our issues, and that last 20% gets to be a little bit more specific. So I'm really excited to be able to answer your questions today, but I also want to maintain your own privacy. So a morning routine to get you moving right. At night, our muscles get to relax typically, and our ligaments and joints don't move as much, and they tend to get a little bit stiffer. So the routine for today is designed to get your joints and your ligaments sort of moving and warmed up for your day. And this is another thing. If people wake up and they're like really stiff and they have problems in the morning, you tend to think their issues are with their ligaments, okay? When someone is like, I wake up and I feel great, but throughout the day, my back starts to hurt and my shoulder starts to hurt and all these things hurt more at the end of the day, you tend to think the issue is mostly in their muscles. And when people go, you know, I'm in a little bit of pain all day, but then I go into bed and man, that is when, you know, my shoulder really, really starts to hurt, or, you know, the pain down my leg really starts to hurt. A lot of times that type of a pain is coming from a referred nerve pain because the nervous system is tied to our brain, and our brain is less busy as we go to bed. And so you become more aware of the nerve issues at night. So those are just different patterns that people tend to have. it's not that they don't overlap in all three areas, but that's like the cheat sheet of what's going on with your body. Okay, so I'm going to go over a handful of different ways that we could work the different joints that most people find beneficial to get their day going. But we could do any of these, well, almost any of these sort of lying down or sitting up or standing up. And they're all just a little bit different. And so I'll go over a couple of them in different ways that you could adjust them. But know that the most effective way to do any of these is to be able to make it fit into your schedule. And so the best way to actually accomplish it is to make it efficient for you and not have a specific time that you have to go to a specific place in a specific position. We want to sort of incorporate this into our general everyday routine, and I'll include what I might do for my day. And I apologize, my dog is barking upstairs. I'm hoping that he isn't much of an interruption. So the most efficient way is if you can just include this. If you can just include this into your day, I'll show you how you could do the different exercises in the different positions, and whatever works best for you is the right one, but also different ways that you might incorporate into your day as you're already getting up. The other thing is I did put them in a particular order that is effective for a lot of people, but you could put them in any order that you want to, okay? These are all generally to get your joints warmed up, to get your ligaments warmed up, to get your body moving from left to right and warm yourself up a little bit for the day. So the exercises that we're going to go over are the ankle and the sheet that you guys would have been emailed. I went over the general exercises right here, and then there's a link to each of them. So I am going to show you what they are, and the ideal world, you would be able to do them on your own. If you go, oh, gee, yes, she said the ankle ones, but what were they? Obviously, if you print it out, you wouldn't have it. But if you go to the document that was emailed and click on it, it's a live link that you could click and say, oh, yeah, that's what the ankle point flexes were. Okay. So what we're going to do is the ankle point flexes. And you can do it for your hands too. And this is really going to warm up your ankle. And theoretically, if you did it exactly as they have it, you warm up all the muscles from your knee down. You have more bones and more muscles from your knee down than you do in any other part of your body. And so, and a lot of times we walk either with our feet out too much or our feet in too much or one of the other. And so this is a great way to get our ankles and joints warmed up. Then we're going to do shoulder shrugs and then a calf stretch. Now, the information that I gave you on calf stretch is Katie Bowman's. She is one of my favorite people for the older, well, she's good for all ages, but when it comes to older people and mobility, she's one of my favorite people. And this is one of her calf stretches. There's multiple ways of doing it. She goes over a couple of them, but I'll show you how you could do two at one time or one at a time. And then an Egoscue sitting twist, an overhead reach, and cats and dogs. And this is really going to get our shoulders moving, our ankles and hands moving, our calf stretched, and kind of getting our bodies used to twisting in each direction, you know, stretching our shoulders back and our upper back. And then cats and dogs really gets flexion and extension of the spine. And this is a really great sort of warm up that, like I said, can be put very, very easily where you don't even have to interrupt your day to get started with it. So let's get going because I know some of you guys have to leave. So the ankle point flexes. If I were to most easily put this into my day, I would do these before I even got up in my day. And let me show you what they were. So if I was lying in bed and I'm waking up and I'm, you know, hearing the birds or I'm hearing the plows outside. Can you guys see me? Yes. and I'm waking. You could do it in a couple of ways. The official Egoscue one is to have this leg be active, bring this leg up, which is not efficient if you're in bed, and to make circles in one direction, circles in the other direction, and then pointing and flexing. And this is going to produce flexion and extension in our hips and activity of all the muscles lower here. But if you're just doing it mostly to get your ankles really warmed up, you could lie here and you could do circles out, and you could even do your hands too, and circles in, and pointing and flexing, and you're going to probably hear pops and cracks, and all sorts of things are going to happen as you get started for your day. And then I would get up and I have shoulder shrugs, okay? So if it were me, I'd probably walk downstairs. I take my temperature every day to make sure I don't have one because of COVID. I turn the coffee maker on, and I would probably do my shoulder shrugs and my calf stretches next. So with the shoulders, okay, shoulder shrugs are theoretically taking our shoulders and rolling them forwards. And this really kind of takes our scapulas and our shoulders and reminds them to move. And then we're going to roll our shoulders backwards. Now, most of us spend too much time rolled forward. So if you were going to spend more time focusing on either forwards or backwards, you would probably want to lift those shoulders up, bring them back, and bring them back. So focusing on sort of reminding the chest to open up a little bit and the shoulders to move back. But it's good to have your shoulders just generally move. Even people with rotator cuff issues tend to not have discomfort with this one, okay? Calf stretches. Multiple ways you can do calf stretches. I included Katie Bowman's because I like it so much, okay? But you could use exercises on stairs and everything else. Katie almost always uses a half foam roller. I don't know if you can see this. It's 36 inches. They have 12-inch ones too. It is a half foam roller. This is a squishy one. It's a little less deep a stretch as the other ones, but even if something like this were too much of a stretch for you, you could start with rolled towels, okay? There is an angle to it, so you don't really want too much of a block, okay? But it's going to be that you have this down. I'm going to put my feet on it, okay? Let me show you this way. So for me, I might do it when I'm like getting my coffee and taking my temperature, okay? So now I have my feet are hip width apart, okay? My toes are pointing forward. It looked angled, but I'm actually angled on the ground, not really angled on the thing, okay? I'll show you from the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my center of gravity sort of over my ankles, and I'm feeling a stretch in both calves, okay? Now let me show you what this looks like on the side. Now many of you guys, so it looks like this, okay? So this is actually quite a decent stretch, and I'm tight. So do you see how I'm wanting to shift my pelvis forward? I'm shifting my pelvis forward because this makes it less tight actually. And let me show you what else you can do. If balance is any issue, always, always safety first. You can absolutely be on a rolled towel or be on this, and I have something that I can have my hands on, so I can always make sure that I'm stable. Or I could be against a wall, okay? This is actually, even though it's a soft roller, I'm a little tight today, so I'm shifting my hips forward. And this is making it a little bit less, actually, a stretch on my calves, which is surprising, right? So right now my knees are straight, and this is going to get my gastrocnemius. This is what we think of as the major calf muscle up here. But now if I bend my knees a little bit, okay, I'm actually going to have to bend at my hips. This is going to get a stretch into my soleus, which is the full calf. It's the underneath one. It goes from the knees down. Now, two ways that you can stretch your calf. You could stretch your calf that way. You could do the other way that Katie has, which is to also test what your, actually, let me put this down so you can see it a little bit better. So if I was like, I'm going to go out for a walk, it's great to start by getting your calves done. But if I'm saying, what should my stride length be today? Because I'm going to go for a walk. This is the way that you can test your stride length. So now I'm going to have my ankle here. I'm going to hold on to here to be safe. Okay. I'm going to see how far forward I can bring this foot without having to shift my hips forward. Let me actually now lift it up so you can see me shift my hips forward. So I want to be able to have the length in my back leg while getting this guy forward and keeping my center of gravity over my back ankle, okay? And this shows me, and then see how much I have to bounce or have true space in that back line. So for me, I'm really tight today. And so you can see I can't take a really long stride today without having to shift my hips forward, use my hip flexors and get into my back. So this is a really great way to just not only stretch your calves, but to get an awareness of how long a stride today's stride should be, okay? Well, most people's issues that they end up going to a podiatrist for, many of them have an element that is coming from taking an improper stride length. Lots of other things can go wrong, but one of the initial things is they're having an improper stride length and they're trying to take too long a stride versus the appropriate stride length. Okay, so sitting twists. Any questions on the stuff that I went over so far? Okay. Well, you guys can also, because I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do it. Now I've made my coffee. I'm going to sit and drink my coffee, maybe check my emails, and I'm noticing that my back is a little bit tight. So I'm going to do a twist. Now, a lot of times, if we're on the computer, or we're writing, or we're reading, or we're watching TV, or whatever, even driving, we're going to have an element where we have a predominant side. For me, I am predominantly right-handed. I massage on both sides of the body. I am still significantly more dominated with my right hand twisting to the left than equally. So for me, this one, okay, which is my pelvis is sitting, my knees are hip width apart, my feet are hip width apart. I'm not going to lift up on my seat, on my pelvis, but I'm going to twist my back and my body, okay? I'm going to place my hand at my knee. This just helps twist me. I'm going to place my other hand on the chair, and I'm going to allow my head to rotate and look in this direction and kind of twist as much as I can without lifting up on my seat. And this is going to do a stretch into your back, but also ask your muscles to work a little hard. And you would just hold this for 30 seconds to a minute maybe. And then we're going to do the other. Because I twist all day long this way, that one's easy for me. This one feels odd, right? So I'm going to take my hand here and my hand here, and now I'm twisting my shoulders, twisting my whole back to look that way. All right, and this is one, introducing movement in both directions, but it's getting just a little bit of a twist into my back. Overhead stretch, okay? This is about when we look at our back, let me go in this direction. When we look at our back, okay, we want to be sitting upright, okay? But a lot of our movement comes from our low back. And a lot of times our upper back gets stuck like in a forward position. And say we're stuck in this forward position and we're trying to lift up for something on the top shelf. Well, we're going to stay stuck in this forward position, and then I'm going to overuse my shoulders and maybe injure it as we're trying to get up. What we want to do is remind that upper back to extend. So this is flexion. Sitting more upright is extension. So we want to be able to remind our upper back and activate those muscles to remember how to work. Now this one can potentially bother your shoulder if you have a shoulder rotator cuff or whatever. So none of these are meant to be painful. All of them are meant to be correct, but they can always be adjusted a little bit to what's comfortable for you. Nothing should be painful, okay? So now I'm going to have my elbows locked. I'm going to come right here, okay? And actually you can come in like this. It gives you a little bit of a stretch to your wrist, okay? I'm gonna lean forward a little bit because I want a little bit of an anterior tilt on my pelvis. I'm going to bring this as much up to my ears as I can, and then I'm going to bring my back to extend, okay? So now I'm having a little bit of a stretch into my arms, and I'm having a lot of activity into that upper back, okay? There's no pain into my shoulders because I would stop if that happened. But this is really asking my hips to stay flexed while my upper back to extend. And this is really great. And then we're going to do a cat and dog. So a cat and dog is really saying I'm going to bring my whole back through flexion and extension, okay? A lot of us have flexion in one section and extension in another, and we don't really go through full range of motion for the whole thing. So we're going to go everywhere from our sacrum and our tailbone all the way up to our neck and our eyes. And our eyes are supposed to do the movement first. So I'm going to go into flexion now. I'm going to tilt my pelvis back, and I'm going to go into a big C. And my eyes are looking down, and then I'm going to be looking up. And I'm going to look up, and I'm going to make my back into an opposite of a C. So I'm seeing the other direction. And I'm just going to move through flexion and extension. And this is really warming up your back and reminding all the different parts that it could work. Now, many of those things could be done all either sitting or all lying down. So say you got up, you made your coffee, and you're sitting down and you're like, you know what, I didn't do it. What am I going to do? Well, if your hips aren't too tight, it can be really great to bring your knee up like this, okay? So now if your knee is way up like this, when you go to sit here, this is maybe not the right one for you, right? But if you can sit here and you can get your knee open like this, I'm going to now stretch into my hip while I'm also going to get my ankle circles. I can't really get into a calf stretch with this. So I would do that maybe when I go to stand up. But now I'm going to do my shoulder rolls. I'm going to do my overhead extension. I can do my twisting. I can do my cats and dogs. And did I miss anything? Yeah, so then I would maybe just do a calf stretch when I was getting up and doing some different stuff. Many of these things can also be done standing. So I'm standing, waiting for my coffee or tea or warm milk or something in the morning. And let me lift this up so you can see. So I am simply going to do my calf stretch. Now, when you go to stand up and do the overhead, right, you want to make sure that there is a slight tilt forward of the pelvis, because then we're going to have extension on top of an anterior pelvis. So I'm going to bring this right here, and now I'm going to look up, and I'm getting an overhead stretch. Of course, we can have the shoulder rolls. You can even do the ankle point flexes, but unless you have really good balance, I would probably be either down on the ground or some element of sitting for that. So really, These are all very, very easy ones that can be easily added into your day in whatever moment. They don't even have to be a specific time, because for the most part, everyone's going to benefit from these. And if you are someone that has that 20% that needs a little bit of extra, I would rather you put special a time for that one piece rather than, you know, this whole thing, and then it gets too long.